What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the PikaPikaPaPa, and today we're going to be looking at some awesome cards from Scarlet and Violet, and I am incredibly excited to share this with you. You know, I think everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people are still really focused on Sword and Shield, and rightfully so, right? Sword and Shield, it's the end of an amazing era. Sword and Shield brought a ton of people back to the hobby. Like, the alt arts are absolute fire. It is just a really special era, but Scarlet and Violet is really special in its own regard. Scarlet and Violet has some amazing set. Not long ago, I did a video where I compared the first 6 sets of Scarlet and Violet to the first 6 sets of Sword and Shield, and at least from a first 6 set perspective, I think all of us agree that Scarlet and Violet is off to a much hotter start. Now, Sword and Shield brought the funk towards the end. I mean, when you think about all of the sets that came out at the end of Sword and Shield, you know, Evolving Skies and Lost Origin, right? Brilliant Stars and Astral Radiance, and I mean, the list goes on and on and on, right? There's just some amazing sets at the end of Sword and Shield. So the bar is set very high for the end of Scarlet and Violet, but there's no reason to believe that Scarlet and Violet can't do just as well. I mean, yes, the bar is set high, but hey, listen, records are made to be broken, so we've yet to see a big Pikachu card. We've yet to see a big Rayquaza card, right? Even some of the evolutions, I feel like we've yet to see a big one of them. You know, I think Charizard has been represented, but I still think that they might be holding back a little bit of a bigger, badder Charizard further down the road. You know, even Gengar, right? Like, I get it, Gengar was in one of the recent sets in Temporal Forces, but not a named Gengar card. You got the Ghastly, you got the Morty's Conviction. So all of that being said, I know that the end of Sword and Shield was really epic, but I think that Scarlet and Violet has the opportunity to be pretty darn awesome in and of itself. And even with that being said, I still think we have some really cool cards to talk about that have started off, and that's what we're doing today. We're going through 10 of my favorite cards from the beginning of Scarlet and Violet, and these aren't necessarily the most expensive, though a lot of them have some cost to them, and they're not necessarily the rarest, but I do think that when we look back here in 3 or 4 years, some of these cards are going to be still really well regarded, and I think that they're going to be awesome pieces for a personal collection or for an investment. Now, before I get into these 10 cards, I always got to do this because I'm a small channel and I'm trying to grow it and I put a ton of work into it. But if you like the content, hit that subscribe button. If you have questions or comments, drop them down below. I always respond to them. And if you like what you see, give us a thumbs up. Those 3 small things go a long way in helping my channel out, and I really appreciate it. So with all of that out of the way, let's start looking at some of these cards. Now, I felt obligated to start off with a 151 card because 151 just, not only is the artwork awesome, not only is the lineup amazing, but it's also brought a lot of people who didn't come back to the hobby from Sword and Shield. This dragged those who didn't make it in Sword and Shield back. I hear all the time that 151 brought a ton of people back into the hobby, so I love it. And this Blastoise card is just absolute fire. I love the artwork on it, and the other thing that I really love is look at how steady the price has been ever since November of 2023. When you talk about these ultra modern cards, a lot of times they go through the Pokemon pop and flop like you see here. It started off as a $40 card, it went up to 56, it came down to 40, and it's been very choppy up and down. But what I take away from this is the support line. When this card gets right at the $40 mark, the market says, this is not a $40 card. They scoop it up at $40, and it continually bounces back up. So I love seeing that. So this is one of the cards that I wanted to call out earlier on in this video. And the other thing that you'll see as I go through this is I'm going to share with you the number of PSA 10s, the total number of cards that have been sent to PSA for grading, and also the overall gem rate, because those are one of the things that I think is really important. It's at least important to me as an investor. I like to know, hey, how many PSA 10s are in existence and how frequently are they handing them out? So for this card, using this as an example, there are 3,163 PSA 10s of this card in existence. There have been a total of 7,908 that have been sent to PSA. So this has a gem rate of 40%, and I will tell you, in the grand scheme of things, that is pretty darn low for a major card from an era. When we did the Sword and Shield comparison, we looked at all the chase cards from Sword and Shield. Those gem rates were in the 60s, 70%. The Moonbreon has a 70% gem rate, right? Yeah, and there's 13,000 of them, and the price is still through the roof. So when you see a card like this from an epic set, epic Pokemon, epic artwork, and it has a 40% gem rate, I'm a big fan of this, and I love seeing the support at the $40 mark. Love that we could kick off with this one. Now, remember I was just talking about gem rate, because we're going from a 40% gem rate to a 18.9% gem rate, which is absolutely insane. This Raichu card right here from Paldea Evolved, there's only 149 of those out there in the world in a PSA 10 holder. That is not a typo. There is only 149 of these cards in a PSA 10 holder. Now, there's only been 788 of them sent to be graded, but that is an 18.9% gem rate, which is as low as you will see. I think there's only one other card in this entire video that is lower than that. Spoiler alert, it's also from Paldea Evolved. And when you see this artwork, right, like the Gen 1 Pokemon with awesome artwork like this, with a really hard gem rate, you know, Paldea Evolved gets all kinds of love. The booster box prices are going up, and it's reasons like this as to why it's going up so much. Now, this card just spiked over the last couple weeks up to $40. It was hanging out in the $18, $19, $20 range there for a long time. It recently spiked up to $40. This video isn't saying, hey, you should go out and buy it right now at the $40 mark. That still feels a little bit high to me, but who knows? We said the same thing about the Magikarp card when it hit the $100 mark. We said, hey, listen, this card might come down. There could be a restock. There could be a reprint. Who knows what's going to happen? But the Magikarp card, you're going to see it later in this video, is still over the $100 mark, which is really cool. And it just goes to show you how much interest and, how much people value these cards, even though the gem rates are really low. I think people are buying these on the secondary markets, praying that they will get one of those 149 worthy ones that they can send off to PSA and increase that PSA 10 count. So really cool card. Again, not the most expensive card from the era, but I think everything that goes into this makes it worthy of this list. Next one right here, Iron Crown. I have said it a million times. I am a low-key Temporal Forces fan. I think this set is flying way under the radar. Like, I am absolutely going to add a ton of booster boxes because their prices right now are right. But when you look at this card right here, again, it went through the normal Pokemon pop and flop that we talk about. It popped all the way up to $100, and then it worked its way back down to the $60. But once it hit 60, it started to bounce back up. Now, I don't have enough of these submitted to give us any idea of how many of the, the overall gem rate. I do think that the overall print quality for Temporal Forces has improved. I think that we're going to see a much higher gem rate in this set, which again isn't a bad thing. I talked to you about the Sword and Shield gem rates. Those were all in the 60-70% range. So as long as it's in there, if the artwork is great and if the market loves it, that will be okay. But that's what I love about this card. I love the artwork. I think this card is absolute fire. I love everything about it. Is it going to go down as the greatest card from the entire era? Probably not, but I do think that this has enough to be really well supported in the long run. I love this card. I love the artwork. And again, it's $60. We'll have to see. The set's a little new. I like to wait a lot longer for the singles cards to come out. Obviously, booster boxes are still super cheap, so a lot more of these are going to be ripped and back in the overall population. But just from an overall artwork perspective, I think this card's got a lot of legs. Now, next one right here, speaking about way too new for us to form an opinion on, I've said it ever since I started reviewing the Twilight Masquerade set. I think this Greninja card, even though it's incredibly busy, I like the artwork on this. I really do. Now, we're going to need a whole bunch more information to figure out, kind of where it's going to end up in a PSA 10 population from a gem rate population. But again, look at that Pokemon pop and flop. It came out at 140. It went up to 155. It dropped down to 110. And for whatever reason, it is right back up at the $140 mark. If people believe in Twilight Masquerade, if they believe this is going to be the chase card of Twilight Masquerade, then I'm sure people are going to be picking it up. Now, it could have some playability effects to it. I know Greninja has got some pretty sweet moves in the game, so this isn't my area of expertise, but that might be one of the reasons that's driving it as well. And I will say this is one of those cards which I talk about the Magikarp a lot because I think that's kind of like the card of the Sword or Scarlet and Violet era thus far. If the gem rates on this are really bad and if the pull rates on this are really bad, we could see this hold at the $100 mark. Now, if the pull rates are through the roof and people are pulling these left and right, and if they're getting gem mint 10s left and right when they send them off to PSA, then organically the price is going to come back down. But no matter what, you cannot take away that this card is an absolute stunner. I love the artwork. I love the big name in Greninja. It's going to be interesting to see how this one pans out, but it's certainly worthy of being on the list. Next one right here, I told you we're going to see an even lower gem rate than we saw before, and this Tyranitar card right here is not disappointing at all. Again, a 16.4% gem rate. That is as low as I've seen on an ultra-modern card that has any kind of chaseability to it since I've started doing this, and I've been doing this data dives for a really long time. 16.4% gem rate is just absolutely abysmal. There's only 173 of these in PSA 10 holders right now. There has been 1,057 of them sent through to be graded by PSA, and you look at the price. This thing started off way high at 45 bucks, plummeted down. It was kind of hovering in the $25, $20 range, and now just like we saw right from that earlier card, the Raichu card, right? Like we saw that one spike up. This one's spiking up as well. I think that now Paldea Evolved is at like the 1 year mark, I think, or a little bit above that. So it's at the 1 year mark, and people are probably starting to figure out that, hey, there are not going to be many of these in PSA 10 holders in the long run. If we've only seen 173 of these in PSA 10s after the course of a year, then guess what? The gem rate is so low, we probably won't see a whole lot more, even if there is a reprint or a restock. So that's why I think people are piling into these. I think the long-term opportunity for these cards is really, really high. I also have talked about this in the past. We've seen where a card like the Moonbreon, right? The Moonbreon, the big chase card from the Sword and Shield era, other Umbreon cards have been just organically going up because of it. Not for nothing, but you know, in Battle Styles, we got the Sleepy T-Tar alt art card that has been going off from a pricing perspective too, and this artwork is just as cool, if not cooler. Okay, it's not cooler, I like the Sleepy T-Tar better, but this artwork is really, really cool, and it's got a much lower gem rate and a much lower PSA 10 population, so it's going to be interesting to see how those two cards kind of move in lockstep moving forward, but I thought this card was awesome and super pumped to add another Paldea Evolved card here on the list. Now, next one right here, Pikachu. But not just any Pikachu, it's a Black Star promo. And not just any Black Star promo, this is the Pokemon Center stamped one from the Paldea Evolved Pokemon Center exclusive Elite Trainer boxes. And for me, there's a lot to unpack here. First off, you have heard me talk already ad nauseum on this video how much I love Paldea Evolved. And then you know how much I love those Pokemon Center exclusive Elite Trainer boxes. They come out, they sell out, and they rarely, if ever, come back into stock. And then you have cards like these, which are really driving all of that excitement that Pokemon Center stamped down there in below. I think all of those factors combine to this card having a great future ahead of it. Now, there is only 299 of these in PSA 10 holders. Only 943 of them have been sent through to get graded. For me, that's a lot to unpack, right? It tells me that there probably aren't a ton of those Paldea Evolved Pokemon Center exclusive Elite Trainer boxes being ripped at all, because I know me, I tell you all the time, I buy 2 of every one simply to rip and send those in. So probably not a ton of these are being ripped. And also, as I said, you know, they sell out and they don't come back in stock. So the overall population will be relatively low moving forward. Plus, you got Pikachu, you got, you know, whenever you have a Pikachu and Friends is just how I always lump it. Whenever you have a Pikachu and Friends card like this, it tends to do really well in the long run. So you got a 31.7% gem rate, which is on the lower side of things. It's going for sub 20 bucks right now. I love everything about this card. Love the set it comes from, love the product that it comes from, love the characters on the card. Like, this card is just an absolute stunner, and it checks so many boxes for me. I love the fact that it is still a sub $20 card right now. Lots of upside in this one. The next one we're going to talk about right here is, as I said, you cannot talk about Scarlet and Violet without talking a lot about the 151 cards. And I think I could have done half of this video list in 151 cards alone because the artwork is so fire. I love that Pikachu card that's in there. I love the Squirtle on the beach card. I love all of them. But this Charizard had to be included on the list. Now, the PSA 10 population for this card is incredibly high, considering this is a set that is well under a year of age. There's still 5,405 of these in PSA 10 holders, which is an incredibly high number. But when you compare that to how many have been sent through, there's been 14,106 of them sent through. The overall gem rate is really low, 38.6%. I'm telling you, again, when you compare any of these numbers to Sword and Shield numbers, these are just paltry. These are non-existent gem rates compared to what we were used to. Now, we have a lot of time left for 151. I think there's going to be some kind of holiday restock or reprint. Like, I think it'd be silly for the Pokemon Company not to do that because they'll sell a ton of it. But even with that, you know, even if this gets to be, I don't know, a population of 10, 11, 12,000, it's Charizard, it's from 151, like, will it have the opportunity to retain a lot of value? That's yet to be seen. Again, population is only one part of the equation. Demand is the other part. Supply and demand is what really drives the value of Pokemon cards. So this artwork is absolutely awesome. It's from one of the best sets in recent memory. It's got the biggest name in all of Pokemon in it, and Charizard. Love this card. Super glad it's on the list. And again, a 38% gem rate is just so incredibly low. I love it. Now, the very next one right here, we're going back-to-back Charizards, and this was the only card on the list that I paused about. I was like, should I include it? Because it doesn't check all of my boxes. You all know that I am very precise in what I do. I follow a certain order. I follow a certain pattern. Like, things don't check the box, they don't make it. And the only reason this one didn't check a box for me originally was because the gem rate is so high at a 61.8%. Now, we have talked about how these more recent Scarlet and Violet sets, the print quality has gone up significantly. There is 2,874 of these Charizard EX from Paldean Fates in PSA 10 holders. There's only been 4,648 submitted, so there's going to be a lot more submitted, and with the gem rate that high, there's going to be a lot more PSA 10s out there. It has been able to hold on to its price, though, from a raw card perspective at $110. I am approaching this one with a lot of trepidation. I think in the long run, this card's going to be one of the stunners from the entire Sword and Shield era. We see these specialty sets, we see these awesome Charizard cards from these specialty sets have a tendency to do really well, so that's why it's on the list, and that's why I'm a big believer in it. But I do think that this is going to have a very large population in PSA 10s. Paldean Fates has some really cool hit rates. You know, the rates were high. You get a lot of really cool stuff whenever you buy the product, and there's already almost 3,000 of these, so this could be another really high PSA 10 pop card. Might not be the most valuable in the long run, but I love the artwork. I love that it's from a specialty set, and I just love that it's Charizard. So the next one we're going to talk about here, a little bit different, but still the same. Snorlax might be a name that you're not used to me talking about much on the channel, but again, we talked about 151. This is the stamped promo card that comes from the Pokemon 151 Pokemon Center exclusive Elite Trainer box. Now that is going to be the most valuable sealed product for Pokemon 151 in the English variant. I promise you that, because there are no booster boxes in the English variant. So those Pokemon Center exclusive 151 Elite Trainer boxes are hands down going to be the rarest sealed product for 151. So I can just see those being worth so much money in the long run. And these little stunners of a cards are just tucked in nicely inside those boxes. So again, you got Snorlax, big name Pokemon. More of these have been graded. There's 426 of these in a PSA 10 holder. There's been 1,024 of them sent through. So you're looking at a 41.6% gem rate, which is amazing to say. That is one of the higher ones, right? We've seen some in the 40s. Obviously the Charizard we looked at was at 61. But outside of that, this is probably the second highest gem rate that we've seen thus far. But I love all of the intangibles, again, coming from the most valuable 151 product, coming from 151, which is one of the best sets in recent memory. Snorlax is a big name. Like, I love everything about this. I can't believe it is still at the $45 mark, but I think this card is absolutely awesome, and I think it's got a very bright future ahead of it. Next one right here, there it is. The Paldea evolved Magikarp, and the population on this is abysmal. There's only 680 of these in PSA 10s. There's been almost 3,000 of them that have been sent through. It has a 23% gem rate. It has been steady Eddie climbing really ever since it came out. It went through that Pokemon pop and flop like we traditionally see, but ever since it hit that low point, it has just been working its way up and to the right. And then about 5 or 6 weeks ago, it just shot up to the $100 mark. Overnight, it shot up to a $100 card, and a lot of us, myself included, kept saying, hey, listen, this is a buyout. The prices are going to come back down, but it is held at that north of $100 mark. And again, you've got to remember, there could be a restock, there could be a reprint, it could be small, it could be massive. All of that will play a factor in how the long run looks like from a pricing perspective for this Magikarp card. But what I don't think will change is I don't think that the demand and the excitement around this card is going to change. I don't think that the PSA 10 population, while it will increase, I don't think the gem rate is going to substantially change. I still think this is going to be a sub 25% gem rate card. I love the fact you got Gyarados that's hiding in the background right there. I love the blue and the red versus the dark background and the colors that are in it. I have 2 of these and I just can stare at them. They're just such beautiful cards, and I love the fact that we have got a card as cool as this as early as we did in the Scarlet and Violet era. Do I think that there's better cards coming up in the future in Scarlet and Violet? I absolutely do. I don't think this is going to be the apex chase card, but at least for now, I'm really excited that we have such a cool card to chase after here in the Scarlet and Violet era. So that is it. Those are my 10 favorite cards in the Scarlet and Violet space right now. As I said, not all are the most expensive or the rarest, but I think all of them give us a really unique opportunity to get some cool pieces of cardboard here in the Scarlet and Violet space that I think could have a really cool future ahead of them. So with that being said, if you made it to the end, I've got even more content like this coming out. Hit that subscribe button, drop a comment down below, and if you liked the video, give us a thumbs up. I appreciate you more than I can say. I hope you have an epic one, and I'll talk to you later. See you, everybody. Bye.